And we are back for Prepping for Winter with the Alayne sample chapter. A tourney and feast are happening at the Gates of the Moon, and the Waynwoods have arrived with Sansa's betrothed, Harry the heir. However, Harry and Sansa's first meeting did not go well, with Harry quite rudely calling her a bastard. Sansa runs off and finally, after searching for him for an entire chapter, has located Littlefinger in the granary. There, Littlefinger has been scheming with Lord Bellmore and Lord Grafton. And now let's continue.
"Lady Alayne," Lord Grafton said, "you look bright-eyed this morning."
"You are kind to say so, my lord. Father, I am sorry to disturb you, but I thought you'd want to know that the Waynwoods have arrived."
"And is Sir Harold with them?"
"Horrible Sir Harold." "He is." So Sansa enters and Grafton says she looks bright-eyed. Now, bright eyes can mean full of energy, but it also has a meaning of shining eyes. Sansa was just crying, so perhaps Grafton is seeing her watery eyes. Sansa then mentions that the Waynwoods have arrived, and Littlefinger naturally asks if Harold is with them. Littlefinger seems to have no interest in Roland and Wallace, who by the way would make excellent hostages, and maybe the heirs to Winterfell. It's worth again noting George R.R. Martin's writing style. An announced plan or contemplated plan rarely comes to fruition. For example, in A Clash of Kings, Theon contemplates dying in battle at Winterfell, and he contemplates joining the Watch, but instead he's captured. At the end of A Dance with Dragons, Jon contemplates going to Hardhome, and he contemplates going to Winterfell, but instead he's stabbed. Our author establishes expectations and then subverts them. That's his MO. And so let's keep in mind that Littlefinger has announced his plan to take control of Harry and marry him to Sansa. Many things may happen to Sansa in the future, but we can essentially eliminate a marriage to Harry.
Lord Bellmore laughed. "I never thought Royce would let him come. Is he blind or merely stupid?"
"He is honorable. Sometimes it amounts to the same thing. If he denied the lad a chance to prove himself, it could create a rift between them. So why not let him tilt? The boy is nowise skilled enough to win a place amongst the winged knights."
"I suppose not,"
said Bellmore grudgingly. Lord Grafton kissed Alayne on the hand, and the two lords went off, leaving her alone with her father. And here we get Bellmore and Littlefinger commenting on Bronzion Royce's mindset and the Game of Thrones in the Vale. So clearly the game is about controlling Harry the heir. Everyone seems to think Sweet Robin is going to die, and so they think Harry is going to be Lord of the Vale. Littlefinger clearly wants to secure Harry by luring him to the Gates of the Moon, and Bronzion oddly lets it happen. Bellmore is baffled, and he should be. It's a very dumb move on Bronzion's part. But Littlefinger dismisses Bronzion's idiocy as him being honorable, much like Ned was. According to Littlefinger, Bronzion likely thinks Harry is not skilled enough to become a winged knight. After all, Harry is just an upjumped squire. He was only knighted because Bronzion hosted a small, squire-only tourney for him to win the honors at. Now, Bellmore is a bit dubious of Littlefinger's explanation, and I do wonder if we should be as well. Letting Harry come to the Gates of the Moon appears quite stupid. The Winged Knight's plan is an obvious attempt at securing wards. And cheating at tourneys is not uncommon. The Royces even took part in the Hand's tourney where Loras cheated. And a rigging of the lists by Littlefinger to make Harry the heir win seems exactly like the type of thing he would do. In fact, it should be expected. So shouldn't Bronzion know that Littlefinger has something up his sleeve? Littlefinger himself says that Bronzion doesn't trust him, so what on earth is Bronzion doing? If he doesn't trust Littlefinger, what's Bronzion's counter-plan? Or is he really just that dumb, simple, and honorable? "Come," Peter said, "walk with me." He took her by the arm and led her deeper into the vaults, past an empty dungeon. "And how was your first meeting with Harry the heir?" "He's horrible." "The world is full of horrors, sweet. By now you ought to know that. You've seen enough of them." "Yes," she said. "But why must he be so cruel? He called me your bastard, right in the yard, in front of everyone. So far as he knows, that's who you are. This betrothal was never his idea, and Bronzion has no doubt warned him against my wiles. You are my daughter. He does not trust you, and he believes that you're beneath him." So Sansa is quite upset at being called a bastard in front of everyone. Now I will say that Sansa is taking further steps in becoming fully Alayne. Coming down the mountain, Miranda called Sansa a bastard over and over, and Sansa didn't react, likely to her detriment, as she probably revealed that she is in fact Sansa to Miranda. However, now being called a bastard is hurtful for Sansa. Now Littlefinger reveals Bronzion's plan to deal with Littlefinger. It's essentially to feed into Harry's ego, convince him that Alayne is not to be trusted, and convince him that she's beneath him because she's a bastard. It's a simple but good plan. Harry has every reason to believe he is above a bastard and capable of choosing his own wife. He's heir to the Vale, and it was Bronzian who made Harry into a knight, which Ned tells us back in A Game of Thrones makes young men very arrogant. And so Bronzian's simple plan seems to be working. Harry's sigil tells us that he's well aware of his lordly position, and he treats Alayne horribly accordingly. In fact, convincing Harry that he should actually marry Alayne will be an uphill battle, especially within the 10 months or so left on Littlefinger's rule. This may all explain why Bronzian allowed Harry to go to the Gates of the Moon. He may think Littlefinger's plan won't work even if he becomes a winged knight. After all, that might just make Harry even more arrogant and give him an even greater sense of superiority over bastards. So quite notably, Littlefinger and Sansa walk past a dungeon. Now we don't have any hint that they are planning to imprison Harry literally like this is Duskendale, but it is interesting that they pass this cell as they discuss capturing Harry the Heir. Well, I'm not. He may think he's some great knight, but Sir Lothar says he's just some up-jumped squire. Peter put his arm around her. So he is, but he is Robert's heir as well. Bringing Harry here was the first step in our plan, but now we need to keep him here, and only you can do that. He has a weakness for a pretty face, and whose face is prettier than yours? Charm him, entrance him, bewitch him. And so here Littlefinger tells us his basic plan. Get Harry to the Gates of the Moon, and keep him there. Now Littlefinger says that only Sansa can keep him at the Gates of the Moon, but I wonder about that. Even if Sansa dazzles Harry the Heir and he agrees to a marriage, he still has to go back to Iron Oaks. Lady Waynwood still has the final say on when and where a marriage would be, unless something else happens. One possibility is that Harry becomes a winged knight. This would essentially be an order from Sweet Robin, the Lord of the Vale himself, to come to the Gates of the Moon. Harry's warding with Lady Anya would effectively end, and he would go to the gates. However, there is another possibility. A darker possibility. Now, as I noted earlier, Littlefinger and Sansa pass a dungeon, and here Littlefinger suggests that Sansa charm and bewitch Harry as if she's some sort of sorceress. This is all reminiscent of the Defiance of Duskendale, where King Aerys was kept in a dungeon, and the whole thing was blamed on Lady Sarala bewitching men with her vagina. And I am very suspicious of Littlefinger's plan for Sansa to snag Harry with her charms. Yes, Harry has a weakness for a pretty face, but that's physical. It's for sex, not marriage. Harry has no problem having sex with people that he believes are beneath him, and has 2 bastards by 2 different women. And it may be sex, or even rape, that is Littlefinger's whole plan. It's likely that taking the virginity of Alayne or impregnating Alayne, the daughter of the Lord Protector, would be seen as a gross insult if not followed up with an actual marriage. After all, this is essentially what happened to Robb. Littlefinger may be hoping that Harry and Sansa have sex, or that Sansa is raped, as it gives him the political capital to force an actual marriage, or at minimum, stay on as Lord Protector a bit longer. So who knows, perhaps that dungeon cell is for Harry. I don't know how, she said miserably. Oh, I think you do, said Littlefinger, with one of those smiles that did not reach his eyes. You will be the most beautiful woman in the hall tonight, as lovely as your lady mother at your age. I cannot seat you on the dais, but you will have a place of honor above the salt and underneath a wall sconce. The fire will be shining in your hair, so everyone will see how fair of face you are. Keep a good long spoon on hand to beat the squires off, sweetling. You will not want green boys underfoot when the knights come round to beg you for your favor. And so here Littlefinger creepily tells Sansa that she knows how to attract a man. Of course, Sansa doesn't know how to attract a man, at least not consciously. The Hound, Littlefinger, Tyrion, and Sweet Robin all have a deep attraction to her, but it's not due to anything she did on purpose. Now, quite notably, Littlefinger brings up Cat, and with the next few paragraphs, we get into Littlefinger's psychology on his obsession with Cat. So it's worth noting that Littlefinger was about 3 years younger than Cat. This means that when Cat was 13, Sansa's current age, in which Littlefinger says she looks so lovely like Cat at her age, Littlefinger was only around 10. And he was a small 10 at that. This crush would continue on another 5 years until Littlefinger was 15 and Cat 18. But at that age, 3 years is enormous. Simply based on age, Littlefinger's love for Cat really had no chance of being requited. And beyond that, marriage was simply out of the question. Cat was far above Littlefinger in feudal standing, and on top of that, she had been betrothed to Brandon Stark at age 12. There was simply never any chance for Littlefinger. And we should mention that Lysa was just as pretty as Cat and was closer to Littlefinger's age. She was just a year or so older than Littlefinger, and yet there's no obsession over her. Now, there may be lots of factors for why Littlefinger fell for Cat rather than Lysa, ranging from Cat having a better personality to the fulfillment of prophecy, but Cat rejecting Littlefinger and her being out of his league seemed to be large factors. Littlefinger wanted what he couldn't have. And so it's no wonder that when Littlefinger gives courting advice to Sansa, he tells her to play hard to get. In fact, he tells her rather specifically to act like Cat. First off, Littlefinger straight up tells Sansa that she looks like Cat, but on top of this, at the feast he will place her near a wall sconce so that the fire will be in her hair. Sansa's hair is currently dyed black, but in the torchlight it will look red again. He then tells her to steer clear of Green Boy squires and only give her favor to a knight. And of course, this reminds us of Littlefinger's famous duel with Brandon Stark. Cat's fiancé was of course a manly, talented young man of 20 when he and Littlefinger dueled, while Littlefinger was a weak green boy of 15, and Cat gave her favor to Brandon. And so it's rather clear that Littlefinger thinks Sansa rejecting Harry will make him want her more, just as Cat rejecting Littlefinger made him want her more. Who would ask to wear a bastard's favor? Harry, if he has the wits the gods gave a goose. But do not give it to him. Choose some other gallant and favor him instead. You do not want to seem too eager. No, Alayne said. So Littlefinger affirms his advice of playing hard to get and not to seem too eager. Of course, Lysa was far too eager with Littlefinger, which perhaps made him not want her. It seems that all of Littlefinger's advice comes from his relationships with the Tully sisters. Be like Cat, don't be like Lysa. Lady Waynwood will insist that Harry dance with you, I can promise you that much. That will be your chance. Smile at the boy. Touch him when you speak. Tease him to pique his pride. If he seems to be responding, tell him that you're feeling faint and ask him to take you outside for a breath of fresh air. No knight could refuse such a request from a fair maiden. Yes, she said, but he thinks that I'm a bastard. A beautiful bastard, and the Lord Protector's daughter. Littlefinger then talks about dancing, which brings us back to Littlefinger's story with Cat. Cat danced with Littlefinger 6 times at a ball, and Lysa certainly felt that she was leading Littlefinger on. Littlefinger thought he had the go-ahead, tried to kiss Cat, and she shot him down. Littlefinger, feeling rejected, got drunk, and it was that night that Lysa went into Littlefinger's room pretending to be Cat and had sex with Littlefinger. So Littlefinger's plan for Sansa is to dance with Harry and clearly lead him on. She is to then go outside with Harry for a breath of fresh air, and there's little doubt that Harry would then try to kiss Sansa at this moment. Or perhaps want more. Now it's of course quite notable that so much of Littlefinger's life experience with Cat is in this plan. Sansa is of course a stand-in for Cat. She already looks like her, and that night her hair will appear red. His plan for Sansa is about generating insecurity and rejection, leading to intense desire. Essentially what he experienced with Cat. It's a plan that makes someone else feel inadequate and jealous, stemming from choosing someone else to give one's favor to. It's a plan that involves dancing, flirting, and leading someone on, and we can see that this plan will lead to at least an attempted kiss. But of course, this is Littlefinger, and this is Ice and Fire, and life is not a song. What is rather dangerous in this situation is that Littlefinger didn't tell Sansa what to do next. He told her to play hard to get, to flirt and tease Harry, and then to take him outside. And then what? Harry is a sexually experienced 18-year-old asshole who likely believes he can have whoever he wants. Sansa is a 13-year-old virgin. What is supposed to happen here? Is Harry supposed to romantically kiss Sansa and then say goodnight like a gentleman and then the next day decide that he wants to marry her? Life is not a song. This is Harry the Arse, heir to the Vale, newly made knight. Harry is going to press for more. And remember, this whole plan is based on Littlefinger's life experience, and we shouldn't forget what happened at the end of Littlefinger's story. It ends with him being raped. Really, in the best case scenario, Sansa fights off an overly fresh Harry. The worst case scenario, Sansa is raped, which is actually good for Littlefinger as he can then demand some sort of restitution. He can perhaps force the marriage or extend his rule. Now, say Sansa successfully fights off Harry. What then? Well, this is Littlefinger's story. He could wait for Harry to get drunk after the rejection, and then send in a prostitute that looks like Sansa in the middle of the night, and in the morning he can claim Harry took Alayne's maidenhead anyway, and have the same political capital. But this is quite a bit of speculation. What we know is that telling Sansa to lead on Harry is not in order to make him fall in love with her. That's silly. There must be a darker motive. Now Sansa and Littlefinger's exchange ends with Sansa thinking that she can't charm Harry because she's a bastard. Littlefinger assures her that she's a beautiful bastard and the Lord Protector's daughter. Now, regarding the second part of that, Littlefinger is only the Lord Protector for another 10 months or so. There's little to gain from marrying the Lord Protector's daughter when he stops being the Lord Protector by the time of the wedding. And as a bastard, Alayne stands to inherit nothing. She has no lands, incomes, or armies. Harry the heir gets nothing politically out of marrying Alayne. The Waynwoods get a dowry, but he himself doesn't receive anything. Now yes, Sansa is pretty, but being pretty is fairly meaningless for a marriage. Marriage is a political tool in this world. Sansa being a beautiful bastard makes her useful for short-term sexual gratification, but not for long-term political alliances. And it's very important to note what young men think about bastard women in this society. Back in A Storm of Swords, Marillion tried to have sex with and then tried to rape Sansa, believing her to be a bastard. He was shocked that she was still a virgin and assumed that she would be eager for sex because of her bastard nature. Marillion said that bastards were naturally lusty. Sansa would have definitely been raped had Lothar Brune not saved her. There's no reason to think that Harry the Arse has any different opinion than Marillion. And Littlefinger's assurance that Sansa is a beautiful bastard simply makes her more of a target. Littlefinger has essentially told a perceived hot slut to lead Harry on and then take him outside. And so we may have a situation where Sir Lothar has to save Sansa again. Peter drew her close and kissed her on both cheeks. "The night belongs to you, sweetling. Remember that. Always." "I'll try, father," she said. And so Littlefinger's final words to Sansa in this chapter are a bit ominous. How can one believe that the night belongs to you always? Doesn't a night only last a night, and therefore it's a shorter period than always? Note, he doesn't say the nights belong to you always, or every night belongs to you always. He says night, in the singular. It's an alarming statement, as some people believe the long night is coming. That would be a singular night that fits with always. And this is a good place to stop. We'll see you in Alayne 1, Part 8. See you then.